You're welcome. Councillor Sonnenberg, then Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need my memory jogged here now. What did we decide with Ride Norfolk? Is this something that's engraved in our lives now forevermore, or are we evaluating it every year, or where are we with Ride Norfolk? I've forgotten.
Mr. Cridley?
Through the chair, my recollection is when we had the service disruption, we entered into a 120-day agreement with another supplier. We have closed the tender, and staff are going through that now. I might add that the results came back, I think, very good, very close to what we had before price-wise. You won't see a big change. And that report will be coming, the award of a tender, I'll call it, will be coming April 4th as well. And I think at that point, councillors wanted to debate it when they saw the cost and the debate the future of this program. So I think you've put it off until April 4th when we bring the information back on the closing of the tender.
Continue.
Well, I find it difficult to make a decision on bus stops if we don't know the condition of the bus service. Am I right?
Well, you certainly are, Councillor. I think perhaps there may be some time sensitivity with this grant. I'm not sure whether that's part of why it's come to us before the new tender, but I think we can be rest assured that this project will not proceed until after council has made its decision on continuing the service. I know that would not take place, so I don't know whether staff want to comment any further on that. But.
We could certainly make that. If council wants to make that as part of the resolution, we could do that and advise the province that of that, and that we would be proceeding with that project at a later date, but we still want to proceed with it.
Sure.
Something like that.
Would that help, Councillor, give you some comfort with this? Okay. I think, Madam Deputy Clerk, maybe you can work on wording that proviso or condition into it. Further speakers? Sorry, Councillor Wells.
My question as well. It seemed to me we just talked about Ride Norfolk and it went into some difficulty, but I presume it's back on stream now and everything is going well? Because Councillor Sonnenberg is correct. There's no point of doing this.
No.
Through the chair, yes. I think we were down for 4 days, and we had another supplier come in, and now we've tendered for a couple years service. We've changed the tender somewhat. I know Councillor Brunton was questioning why there wasn't a penalty clause to get out. That is in there, and yeah, it'll be council's decision on the 4th, I guess, ratified on the 11th, and if the we hope if the service continues, then yes, we need the bus shelters, and if Ride Norfolk doesn't continue, then this money would go back to the province because we wouldn't need the shelters.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Seeing none, is someone prepared to move this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Black, Madam Deputy Clerk, maybe I'll ask you to read it because you've added that little proviso for us.
Thank you. Through the chair to committee, that staff report FS 1710 approval of transfer payment agreement with Ministry of Transportation for bus stop improvements be received, and that a bylaw be passed authorizing the Mayor and Treasurer Chief Financial Officer to sign the transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation for the Province of Ontario for funding under the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund, Phase 1, and further that the 2017 capital budget be amended to approve the Ride Norfolk bus stop improvement project in the amount of $116,000, pending further review of the Ride Norfolk service in April of 2017, and further that council approve the county's share of the project cost be funded from the contingency reserve in the amount of $58,000.
Okay, that does put that proviso in. This would only happen contingent or pending our decision relative to the Ride Norfolk service. I will call the question. Those in favor of this recommendation? I see 4. Those opposed? I see 3. So the motion does carry. Thank you very much. And that will then, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that'll take us to staff report CM 17-01, Norfolk County Corporate Strategic Plan Update 2014 to 2019. Mr. Baird? Can you help us with that, or who's going to handle that one? Mr. Ford again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got to, because I was the acting county manager when this report was being prepared, I drew the short straw and prepared the report. Actually, Colleen Coons prepared the report, and I'm presenting it. Council, excuse me, Council, when the strategic plan was adopted, I'm trying to get the report open. When the strategic plan was adopted, one of the provisos in was that we would provide a report to council periodically in terms of what an update is. We missed the one last fall, I think. I think we had drafted something in October, and then somehow it didn't end up on council's in front of council. So this is really a one-year report with an update in terms of where these things in the strategic plan sit and the actions that have been taken and so on and so forth. I believe that the intention is that sometime in the fall there will be another update 6 months hence, probably in the October timeframe. And I don't propose to go over all the items that are in there. If there's any questions, I'll take a shot at answering them, and if not, one of the GMs that are here could answer if it's in their area of responsibility.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Ford. Any questions in particular from council members on the report? And I know obviously that we're going to want our new county manager to quickly get his fingers into this as well, and perhaps that's the more appropriate approach at this point, to have something come back to us in a few months. So, Mayor Luke.
Let's move the recommendation to receive as information.
Thank you very much. Just let me get to my page again, 133. Sorry, Council, I'm just searching to make sure I get the exact wording, although I think it is just as the Mayor has said, just that we receive the report as information. Mayor Luke has moved that. Those in favor of that motion? I see no one opposed to that, so that too is carried. And then that does bring us to the conclusion of our staff reports. I see no motions brought forward, no notices of motion at this point. We do have other business, and I think I will start with staff this evening. Ms. Robinson, let's go with you first.
Through the chairman, just for anybody who doesn't know, I just wanted to introduce the gentleman beside me. This is Sean Van Acker. He is the manager of roads and public works, and he was just coming to see what we all do on Tuesday evenings. And I have nothing else this evening. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Sean. And this was a little bit of baptism by fire this evening, although you got off pretty easily, I think. So it won't always be that easy. But welcome. Marlene Miranda, anything
Nothing,
from
thank you.
Okay, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you. Through the chair, just an update that we are running advertisements in the coordinated ad relative to the new YouTube channel. Just in follow-up to our council and committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, I believe Councillor Brunton brought it up. So we do have the ads running now that will advertise the YouTube channel and the other ways that you can live stream a council meeting or watch us on local cable. So,
Councillor Black, on this point.
Question on that. When does it, like tonight's meeting, will that be up when? Tomorrow or next week or?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Black. So all public meetings are available on YouTube after 5 p.m. the day following the meeting.
One day?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to have to let my sister in Florida know, because she was on the phone with me complaining. She couldn't find it. And I said, well, it's got to be there. So I guess I'll have to get some computer person down there.
Thank you. Anything further, Joe? Okay, thanks. Mr. Acting County Manager.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Mr. Baird? Okay. Candy Webb?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. And John
Thank you,
Ford.
but no.
Okay. Councilors. Councillor Geisens. You're very welcome. Councillor Columbus.
Nothing.
Mayor Luke?
If I may, Sunday, April the 9th, not that far away, 11:30 in the morning, Maureen Chunick who works alongside me, and I are bowling for Big Brothers. We need 2 good bowlers to join our team. Normally, my wife and grandkids bowl with us each year, but 3 of them are gone, left me alone. So if somebody could join us that day and come out for some fun for an hour, that would be much appreciated. One of the things I had, I don't see the papers here, so I'll leave that for next week. 2 other things. I think all of councillors got that. Yes, they did. But it's worth mentioning, Susan Taylor, as you know, is with us now in the public health. She sent us an email on Friday to tell us that there are now 4 family doctors, all in the same building, which is the former Port Dover Medical Center. We all know Alison Malo was first, Dr. Malo, and Mr. Ugobi is already there with her. But there are 2 more that started, one in February, Dr. Bajwa, and number 4, Dr. Kang. It's K-A-N-G. I don't know if it's Kong or Kang. I assume it's Kang. He is supposed to be starting in mid-March, so I imagine it's pretty well there. This has been a while coming. This is good news, and good news is worth waiting for. So I did want to mention that doctor recruitment does work. And the other thing I want to just perhaps direct this towards Mr. Baird. I got an email a week ago, Monday, March the 13th, from Councillor Haidt, who's not here this evening, and very frustrated over this whole access and egress issue in and out of Long Point, Turkey Point. From his email, Mr. Chair, I'm not going to read it, but he's sent it to me, and he's very frustrated, having a very tough time. He's telling me, and I've heard some wind of this, that because we do not have an emergency evacuation plan for egress and access to Long Point and to Turkey Point, that all development applications are on hold. By LPRCA and by our planning staff will not, according to him, we will not recommend approval for any applications in those 2 areas. Now, I'm just going by what he has sent me here, and I don't know if that's true or not. So through you to Mr. Baird, could you apologize for my back, Mr. Baird, could you through the chair shed a little light on what happens when somebody is in Long Point or resides in Turkey Point and wants a building permit for a porch, a renovation, a minor variance, or whatever? Are we got everything on hold or not?
Through the chair, no, we definitely don't have anything on hold. The issue for both of those communities has always been the concern about flood potential and public safety. And in the absence of having a clear plan, it makes it very difficult for the Conservation Authority staff to provide approvals. It's not building, we need the Conservation Authority letter so that we can issue a building permit. Generally, there's not a lot of planning unless it's, perhaps an increased footprint or floor area. There's cottages being redeveloped. So there is some involvement there. But what's been happening are those applicants, in the absence of having a policy in place, a new and clearer policy, those applications have been going directly to the Conservation Authority Board, and it's those board members that have that privilege of making the approvals, and that's what's been happening. So things have been going forward, but in the interim, it's sort of a 3-4-pronged approach here. Mr. Cridlin is involved because of fire and EMS. They need to develop an emergency response plan and explain it and define it. We're working with the Conservation Authority staff to develop some planning policies that we can support and get the ministry behind, and we're working on that. We're confident there. Ms. Robinson as well, a bit of a longer-term strategy if and whenever roadways that are in the flood-prone areas are subject to upgrade and repair, that they take consideration in, is there an opportunity to raise them somewhat? Not 4 feet, but is there an opportunity to do that? And then finally, a communications plan. How does the county and the Conservation Authority, how do we notify those cottages, or those residents in Long Point and Turkey Point? How do we let them know about a pending storm, or if there is an emergency in place, how do we communicate with them? So it's sort of taking a little bit from each of those 4 areas and creating this policy that will then be fully supportable so that development can basically be approved and not have to go to the Conservation Authority Board. That's our understanding, and we're all working away on it right now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, there's some really cross messages going on here. If this county was blocking or saying we can't approve because we don't have an egress access in place, I would suggest at this table that this council give direction to our planning staff that people have been living in those communities for 150 years. And they've been getting in and out of there through good times, bad times, whatever, and that I hope the ministry isn't forcing this county to shut down people doing renovations, etc., and applying and progressing because of somebody up top putting these hardships on our people. So I'm hearing from Mr. Baird that's not the case. And I can't speak about LPRC and their position on their board because I'm not appointed to it. But this is the cross messages here, if I may, and then I'm done. It might pass LPRCA board. He's talking, Mr. Height here in his email to me. It might pass LPR at the board of LPRCA, and now it looks like our staff will block it anyway. This has been a problem for a long time. Why is it being a problem now? Our policy person is running with the most restrictive rules possible. I've asked LPRCA board to be patient while Norfolk County gets its act together, and they have been patient. So I'm telling you, I'm getting cross messages here big time. This is serious stuff. He tells me he's had another complaint from a developer in Turkey Point who can't get by our planning staff because of this whole access egress issue. Somebody needs to set the record straight here. There is no official policy in place at LPRCA. I suggest until there is, it's business as usual for Norfolk County. It's like we're operating on a fear of something that could happen. And it gets frustrating. I think there's some work to do at LPRCA and our staff to say, how are applications that come, if it comes here, and as Mr. Baird says, thank you, Mr. Baird, for your explanation, and goes on to LPRCA, let's not be pointing fingers at each other. Let's get the message loud and clear. The egress access is being worked on until it's finalized. Then business as usual. I don't know how else you can operate. What are you going to do? Shut the county down until we get some of these studies done? I don't think so. I can get in out of Turkey Point. I was in Long Point Saturday morning, Turkey Point Saturday morning. I can get in and out really, really well. If a storm comes up, we'll deal with it. In the meantime, business, we're open for business. So I don't know, I know I'm frustrating, but I get complaints after complaints, and nobody seems to know why applications are getting held up. We got to get this straightened out. As far as I'm concerned, if you live in TP or LPR or Long Point, and you put an application in right now, whether it takes us 6 months or 6 years to get the egress access report, get that application in the queue and get it dealt with, so these people can be dealt with in a fair manner. I don't care what the direction from the province is. If there's direction from the province to delay or deny these applications, let's get it to this table in writing, or LPRCA in writing. So I've spouted off enough here, but I tell you, this is frustrating. Something needs to be done until we deal with this. So I hope somebody takes the bull by the horns. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I'm a little bit
No, that's okay.
animated here, and I don't mean to be like that, but I deal with this week after week, sometimes 2 and 3. And again, I still don't know why these applications are being held up. I'd like somebody to tell me why they are, and who's responsible, and on whose authority. Otherwise, I don't remember this council passing anything to put a hold on anything that comes out of TP or LP. I don't remember it.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. On this point, Councillor Columbus, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on this point, the Long Point Region Conservation Authority, they've been having a lot of appeals towards a hearing board. And the reason for that on these is because everybody down there is building a much larger residence, vacation home, whatever we want to call it, than what was there previously. And if the rebuild is greater than 50%, is the way it's considered, of the floor space, a lot of these are 2 stories now, then the up to 50%, the staff of the Conservation Authority kind of lets it go through. Whereas in a lot of other conservation authorities, they don't even allow that limit. So they are flexible somewhat. No, it's 50. And yeah, 50% extra, so it's double, yeah. And anyway, that way it's considered a redevelopment if it's over that limit. They consider it redevelopment, and they are following provincial regulations through Conservation Ontario and some other act, I can't recall what it is. And that's the reason. So when that happens, when the staff objects to it based on those principles that they're provided by the provincial government, it has to go to a hearing board, and then we have to sit. Last time I think we did, in one meeting, we did 4 of them. And you go through the same thing. So they were all approved. All of them have been approved. Some have caveats on the title. But that's where it's at. And we are anxiously waiting this ingress-egress resolution with the county through Mr. Cridlin's department primarily to get this solved so we don't have to go through those hearings and we speed redevelopment up considerably.
Mayor Luke?
Question through to Councilor Columbus. In your explanation, I didn't get the sense that they're being taken to a hearing because of the egress access. It seemed to be ones that are more than 50%. And I'm well aware there's a policy you're not supposed to increase your footprint more than 50%. Are they being held up in any way, shape, or form from egress or access?
I would say that's one of the principles of why they're being held up, because if you've got more square footage in the redevelopment of that cottage or vacation home, or home in that case sometimes, you're actually increasing the capacity. They're saying they're increasing the capacity of the building. So if you've got 3 bedrooms replacing a 1-bedroom home, there's more people at risk and more property at risk, because the Conservation Authority, one of their mandates is to protect people and property is what the mandate is.
Mayor Luke, further?
One last time.
Okay.
Are you saying, through you to the chair, to Councilor Columbus, that it's any application that is below 50% increase in size is not being held up, just the ones that are over 50%?
That's my understanding. That's
Okay.
kind of the limit.
I certainly will be emailing tonight to Councilor Height. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Luke, for bringing this up. It is important, and we do want it resolved. I just want to offer one observation myself, and I guess directed to Councillor Columbus and others on the LPRCA board. While I think we understand the concept that you've described, Councillor Columbus, that if it's got a larger interior capacity, theoretically there could be more persons there and therefore more risk to life. But would it also not be true to say in probably every case where a cottage is either being redeveloped or expanded, it's being raised? The minimum opening elevations are being raised to the regulatory standard, and that's a reduction of risk, not a greater risk. So we have to be able to balance those two in some way. I'm not asking for a comment unless you will, Mike, but that shouldn't be forgotten, though.
I'd like to comment, yes, one of the things taken into consideration is the level there, 176.5. That's one, it has to be built up to that. And of late, most of those that are being approved have a stamped engineer's drawing that goes with the application.
Yep.
Pretty well all of them.
Yes.
And that offsets our liability and risk somewhat, I think.
Yes. Thank you. And Mr. Krillin, back to you. Can you just refresh our memories? I know the committee is meeting next week regarding the access egress emergency plan, and just give us sort of a timeline again, if you would.
Yeah, through the chair, we are meeting next week, and that will be planning staff as well as our conservation authority staff, fire staff, and EMS staff. So this is basically our second meeting we've had. It will be like Mr. Baird had mentioned, the four-prong approach. And I'd actually kind of forgotten, I think it was a few weeks ago that Councillor Height had asked that this be in, I think we have a deadline of July, so we are moving ahead. It's a little complex and we've got to get everybody working together, but be assured that Conservation Authority staff will be at that meeting. They'll play a part, the planners. I'm not sure if Public Works have an invite at this point, but they're a player, and obviously my staff. So we're moving on. It's just a complex issue. There's no magic bullet at this point, but we're working to getting something that will satisfy the regs.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Luke, for bringing that point
you.
forward in other business. Councillor Sonnenberg, anything for this evening? Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment of something that was in our information package on page 7, and it's related to the meeting of the Chamber of Commerce, Board of Trade, and the BIAs. Mr. Chair, I was quite surprised when I read the number of people attending. There was 8 staff members in attendance, and there was only a total of 15 members there. So that's 8 staff members and 7 members of the public, I presume. And I was just wondering if Mr. Barrett had any idea as to why the South Coast Business Coalition, the Port Dover Board of Trade, the Chamber from Port Rowan, and the Simcoe Chamber of Commerce, why they did not have someone there representing their group.
Mr. Baird.
Through the chair, the invitations went out to all members, and those 4 that you just mentioned sent regrets, and they were unable to have someone attend, but we had 2 guest speakers that were there that had committed, and it was decided to proceed with that and provide the minutes and just have the discussion that ensued. Mayor Luke had joined us as well, and I think it was, we had a good, fruitful discussion, and yeah, that was it. Just unable, for whatever reason, their schedules just didn't jive.
Yes, I think we all noticed that, Councillor. I, too, certainly noticed the same thing. It was disappointing that they weren't able to be in attendance. I'm sure they were invited. Councillor Black, on this same point?
On the same point, and actually I read that, and I got a hold of Jim McGimsey from Downtown Simcoe BIA and asked the same question about the attendance, and I guess he really didn't have an answer. It was noted, I see, that Port Dover and Delhi did the community exchange, and it wasn't noted that Simcoe did that far before the 2 of them did, and I think it was because Simcoe teamed up with Godrich, and it was quite successful when we exchanged, so I think Port Dover followed suit and Delhi as well, and I read the minutes of their exchanges, which I think were quite interesting, and I think we did follow through in Simcoe with some of those things, and I know our BIA general manager, because of that meeting, is thinking maybe it's time to do it again, and has actually communicated once again with Godrich. So it was something good did come out of it, and I know it's kind of, these things are kind of icing on the cake and not really addressing the root problems of downtown situations, right. But at least, you know, we're talking about it and moving forward in a productive way.
I have thought really from day one, Councillor Wells, to your point, that the South Coast Business Coalition, in a sense, represents the same thing as what Haldeman has been doing successfully, and that's a good news story for sure. with one exception, and this is just my personal opinion, and that is perhaps that the BIA from downtown Simcoe wasn't initially embraced and invited to be, if you like, an equal partner in that South Coast Business Coalition, which I feel they deserve to be. And I think that's changing, and I know Mr. McGimpsey is making very, very good inroads in becoming part of that group, and so we'll continue to hope that progresses. Councillor Black, anything for tonight?
Thank you very much, Chairman Oliver, and just, well, I had it up on my screen here. Now it's kind of disappeared on me, but if you just bear with me for 1 second here. Yeah, it's just Councillor Columbus raised the issue of the number of emails that we're getting in regards to multi-use recreational facility hub, and it was interesting, the one that we did get, and I have received some other ones where people aren't just sending emails but making commitments, saying that they would actually commit to fundraising. So, I mean, that's worth a lot more than just the email itself, that people are willing to actually commit to fundraising. And secondly, I just wanted to mention the Simcoe Library, Simcoe branch of the Norfolk Public Library, is having a maker space dedication on Saturday, March the 25th at 2 p.m. And I know this came up in budget discussions, whether this was taxpayer money or not, and it was actually money coming from John Race and his funds. So he donated to this to create this maker space. So if anyone isn't doing anything on Saturday, March the 25th at 2 p.m., come on over and have a look at what they've done there. And also, the Long Point Basin Land Trust is hosting a spring cleanup. It's too bad Councillor Height wasn't here. Spring cleanup along the beach in Long Point. And who is the contact person is Lindsay Schuler. She's the stewardship coordinator of the Long Point Basin Land Trust. And they will be meeting, it will be April 1st, coming up real soon, rain or shine or snow, and they'll start the cleanup at the municipal parking lot beside Stubbs Grub. Do we have a municipal parking lot there? On the east side of the old park, okay? Yeah, all right, so we do. At sandy spot there. From there, they will spread out and clean up the beach, and Norfolk County has graciously been working with them to assist. So I think that's great that community, people like Lindsay and Norfolk Field Naturalists and many other groups actually get out and help clean up the beach down there. So if you're not doing anything on April the 1st, and yes, it is April Fool's Day, so be careful. It's not an April Fool's joke, okay? It's for real. Anyway, it'd be nice to see more people participate. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one item to bring to council's attention, and this publication has been put on all of our desks this evening. I think staff have seen them as well. This is a new tabloid-type publication about farming within our county, and Dave Douglas, I think, from Waterford was heavily involved in its production, and I know our staff within Tourism and Economic Development, I think, assisted with facilitating or otherwise seeing this come to fruition. So I have looked through it, and it's got a lot of very good information about how innovative and progressive our farm community is across this county. So everyone should have a look. And that's it for this evening. So unless there's something further to be brought before committee, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.